Good afternoon, shopkeepers and do-it-yourselfers out there in YouTube land. Today we're working on a 1999 Lexus LS400. Going to replace the starter motor, and it's underneath there, underneath the intake manifold. So we're going to go ahead and start taking it apart. I've already taken the upper engine cover bezel. It's got 4 fasteners, 1, 2, 3, 4, that holds that down. Then I'm going to go ahead and take the air intake tube and reservoir box, take that off of there. Got both clamps loose, and there's 2 bolts that hold it down. One back here in the back, 10mm head, and one right here. These are the same length. These 2 bolts are the same length that hold that on. We're going to go ahead and take that off of there. I went ahead and took the tunnel ram off, took one 10mm bolt out right here, raised that up, and it come right out of there into the air filter box. Stored it over there in the spare part department. So we're going to work on getting things unhooked here on the top, getting the wiring harness out of the way. We'll unhook the coils and the injectors, lay this side over, and we'll come over and start working on this side and laying it over out of the way. And we're going to take the throttle body and pull it off and get this stuff up out of the way, and we'll start working on that. These loom holders, there's a little lock that you can reach in there with a knife or little screwdriver and kind of pry it away, and it will slide off of that retainer right here that's fastened onto the fuel rail. There's one there too, just like it. Just like I say, just put your screwdriver or your knife or little pick and pry it over, and it'll pull right off of there. Now you start taking all these off, you're going to think, oh man, I got all these connectors, I'm never going to get them back where they go. Well, they lay, when you pull your harness back over, they lay about right where they're going to go. And most of your connectors, you know, you can't put the wrong one on the wrong thing, so you don't have to worry about that. And this one here, that's your cam position sensor, and that release is up here on top. It was kind of hard to get to. I just stuck a screwdriver in there and gently pushed against the lock while I was pulling on the connector with my other hand. Don't pull on the wires, because you'll pull them out of the terminal. And back here in the back, well, let's see, you can see that 10mm head bolt right there. That holds this plastic harness loom. So we're going to take that bolt out, and that'll free up the harness so we can move it back a little further out of the way. You know, there's that little bolt come out right back there. That lets this harness move a little bit further out of the way so we can get back in there, and we'll start working on the other side. Then you got the cam position sensor on the driver's side of the vehicle. It's the same. Kind of hard to get to. I don't know if I can do it one-handed. And if you were to follow that socket extension going straight down, right back in there is another bolt on this side that holds that plastic loom, that housing for the wire harness going across. Take that out, and that'll loosen that up. And took a bolt out right there, 10mm bolt, and one right there. And then we took one out right there out of this bracket. The light's a hindrance, but that freed that up, and that freed that up. And these bolts, they're all 3 the same, like that one that we took out back here in the back, and I'm sure this one back here is going to be the same, but that'll loosen that all up so we can bring it over here. We got a couple of connectors up here we need to loosen, get this where we can get it over here out of the way. I got all this loose. I found that if if you give that hook a couple of love taps toward the driver's side shock tower, that'll loosen that up enough where you can get your wire harness out from behind it. And because you can't get it out because the bolts are down in there, just kind of move it over a little bit. We're not going to need it anyway. And I see that before I take the manifold off and all, we got a lot of debris down in here. I'm going to take my air hose and see if I can shoot most of that out of there and reduce the risk of getting unwanted crap down into the engine. I went ahead and took these sweet fuel line connectors off. It's I believe that's a pressure regulator, but I used the right size wrench. It's probably a 22 millimeter, but my 7/8 fit it pretty good, and I was able to get in there to get both of them loose. But when you take them out, you know, you might have a little residual fuel pressure, so make sure that you're not smoking your cigarettes and whatever else you might be smoking. But on the top, this goes on like that, right down here on the fuel line, and over here on that side too. They're both the same. There's a washer on the top, and then there's one underneath the line that I dropped down there. I got to dig out. I believe it's aluminum, but it's a crush ring. But that goes between the line and the manifold. So make sure that you get those out and don't lose them. And if you drop them down there behind the coolant bottle, you got to get your flashlight, your hook, and all that. Can't use a magnet because it's aluminum. But anyway, I took that loose so I could have a little bit more flexibility back in here. I don't think that's fastened to the back of the manifold. If it is, then I should have took it apart here, but I don't think it's fastened back there. Anyway, let's start working here on the front. Yeah, I removed the air cleaner and found that other crush gasket. But took the 4 fasteners off the throttle body, two 12 millimeter nut, two 12 millimeter nuts on top and two 12 millimeter head bolts on the bottom. We'll just go ahead and lay these up here so we don't drop them down in the engine. And we need to go ahead and pull the throttle linkage up out of the way. I just wiggled the rubber grommet up out of the holder. I think we can leave it like that. We'll leave it connected here. It looks like it kind of snaps into the plastic. So instead of risk breaking it, we'll just leave it hooked up. It's not in the way. And see what we got holding this. I just reached in there with a pair of pliers, gripped a hold of this stud. It come right loose, and I spun it out. And that gave me enough room I could get that up out of there. And we'll go ahead and throw that up there with them others. So this is out of the way. And there's a coolant line hooked to it. So I think it's still out of the way. Maybe we'll go ahead and pull this other stud out of the way so it's not catching when we pull it up out of there. But now let's start working on getting the fasteners out of the bottom, which are, well, there. Right down through there, there, and there. We'll get them all out. Take this 12 millimeter head bolt out the back of the corner of the passenger side of the intake manifold. It comes out of this bracket that is secured to these heater hoses. So take that out. I just stuck the bolt back in. Okay. I took this bolt out of this vacuum crossover line so I could slide it forward and get this 10 millimeter head bolt out right here. Took that one out. Took this wire connector loom bracket, and it also holds your upper cover. Take it out of the way, and the wire is still connected to it. We'll just lay it over here out of the way. And then I put the bolts back in. Use a swivel socket to get to that back manifold bolt, straight on with a 6-inch extension and a good 12-point or a 6-point shallow socket, 12mm, to get 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts out of this side. And also took this bracket off that held the throttle cable on, because it blocks that hole or access to get that bolt. And I just stuck the nuts back on. So we'll go to the other side. Loosen this bolt and this bracket that holds the upper cover. I didn't take it out, just loosen it. Move that bracket out of the way so I can get to that bolt there. Used the same tooling, 6-inch with a short 6-point socket on these front 4. The back one I used the swivel socket. There's a nut on all 4 corners and 3 bolts in the middle on both sides. The bolts are all the same. Bolts and nuts are all the same size. Put them over there out of the way. So the manifold should be completely loose. It's a bit of a balancing act. Coming out. Well, it sets up there. It looks like that fuel line is fastened on the back side of the manifold there in the center of the fuel line. We'll take that out and set the manifold down on the ground and work on getting it cleaned up. Looks like we've had a couple of visitors living in here, some squatters. We'll get that mess cleaned up, but there you can clearly see the starter. That's what we're after. Look what I found. Compliments of Jerry. We'll have to fix that. I guess that's probably the purge valve for the evap system. We'll get that cleaned up. I took that line off, or the nut off the back of the fuel line, so we can set that manifold down on the ground. And I don't know what's down in here. We're gonna not use my fingers. Well, I got it cleaned out pretty much. Get the starter out. I'm gonna try and see if I can snake a wrench down in there and get them bolts loose. Not have to mess with that bypass or crossover tube right here. Be 2 12mm bolts here and 2 over there. Take that up out of there. Probably have to do it anyway, but we'll see. Okay, I figured I didn't have enough stuff parts. I went ahead and took that crossover pipe out. There's a bolt, little 10mm bolt that holds this crossover loom to that. Take this connector off the top. The squeeze is on the back side. Squeeze it in and it'll release. And right down there, you'll feel the bolt head where it goes in right there. And then I used my 6-inch extension with 12mm swivel and got all 4 of those nuts loose. They're all the same. It's all the same hardware. And it doesn't, I took this bolt out too right here that holds this pass-through tube coming out of the water pump. When we get this all out of here, I'll probably pull this out and check. There should be an O-ring in there. We'll go ahead and replace that. But here's the 12mm head bolt that went in right here that held this coolant pipe. And I got a 12-point wrench and loosened both of these bolts I'm gonna get my shorter wrench and I'll get them bolts out of there. Well, let's see. Squeeze that connector there for your, dang it, solenoid ignition wire. Pull it out and take your battery cable nut off of there. A little clip on that wasted insulator there. Probably would have fried the mouse. There's your starter out. There's your starter out. And we'll get the rest of these cleaned out. We'll take these gaskets out on this crossover pipe. Pull this out of here. Kind of jack that around to get that starter out. I don't know if that's going to come out of there or not. Well, anyway, these starter bolts, that other one's still in here. But I'm going to spray a little bit of penetrating oil on that. Clean that up. There's the other one that goes on the passenger side. And we'll get this cleaned out and start putting it back together. I'm going to put the camera on hold. Maybe it'll not end the video, but it'll set overnight. Hopefully it won't end it. If it does, look for part 2. Thanks for watching if it does end. Well, I guess the customer had a starter in their trunk. It's been in a box for, I don't know how long. I don't know what that was I spilled, but so I got it installed, and I just put a jumper wire on the solenoid. I'll jump across, so I know it works. So we're good to go there. I got it bolted down. This one on the driver's side was the hardest one to get to. Dadgum, this plastic piece, the shield that goes around the, it's supposed to have a bolt that goes in there, but this starter doesn't even have a hole in it for the bolt, and it didn't have one in it to start with. But I got it tightened in, and I can't get this pipe out. I'm gonna have to do some more finagling to get it out, but I left everything loose, got the starter in. When I get the gaskets, then we'll put this pipe on and get all that fastened down. We'll put the foam back down, leave it on pause. It'll either hold out till tomorrow or it won't. If it don't, thanks for watching. Well, I started cleaning on this. I replaced this, took this connector off, and pushed on a release and pulled that stub of that wire out, and I spliced in a section about that long. I've got a drawer full of wires with pigtails that I've taken out of connectors on other jobs that maybe I was putting an engine in or something, and that had a bunch of connectors and stuff, but they really come in handy. And but I spliced it together and then heat shrinked it and then put a piece of this plastic or rubber conduit around it to seal it off. So that's repaired. And I went ahead and cleaned my gasket surfaces up. I didn't buff them, but that's good enough. And make sure that, remember I took that one wire connector off. Well, it goes to that that I had to fix, but make sure that you've got it routed. And I went ahead and put one bolt so it would be hanging up there and not fall underneath when I get the manifold set down in there, and then have to take it back apart. But this is your injection air intake runner valve. That's what all this crap is. It's a vacuum, so you want to make sure that that's all connected, and the mice didn't chew on that, and they didn't. That's good. So far so good. The phone hasn't shut off or shut the camera down, but we'll set this over here and turn it upside down and keep stuff from setting in it. I cleaned that, but I set it up on the end and it kind of run out. I'll spray that off again. And I went ahead and cleaned the throttle body while I had it apart and exposed. It was quite filthy. I like to use that CRC brake cleaner. They're not a sponsor. Nobody is. But if you want to send me some money, PM me and I'll give you my address. I'll be happy to cash your check. Anyway, we're still waiting on gaskets. And they'll be in tomorrow. So, again, if the phone dies, well, thanks for watching. Otherwise, we'll see you later. Well, what do you know? It didn't shut off on me. This, that's my mule. Water bypass tube. This is the gasket. This is the part number for it from O'Reilly. It only comes with one gasket. I don't know why that is, because there's one on both sides, and the rubber on the old gasket was kind of exhausted. This is one of the old ones, and if you look, about all you can see is the multi-layered steel. The rubber is smashed completely flush with it. Well, if you look at one of the new ones, the rubber is not completely compressed, and you can see the rubber that it's above the surface of the steel. So if I didn't replace them, there's a real good chance that they would probably leak. And I didn't want, for $12 for 2 gaskets, you got to get 2 of them. One, see, it says, where does it say on this one? Contents, doesn't say. But the other package was from Victor Lorenz. Well, I don't have the package for the other part, but it said on there quantity 1. I don't know what I've done with it. I threw it away, I guess. You can see I've already got the new one over there. And so we'll put this one in. And there's obviously a way that it's supposed to go, like that right there. Dang it. Takes a little bit of wiggling, finagling, pulling this up and getting that back to set down over the, because these are studs, not bolts, but got it in there. You can see that there's that bolt hole where this fastens down to that, and that bolt goes right back there on the back side of it. One of these bolts, there's several of those, same size anyway. Well, we'll get that bolted down, and then we'll get this blew out again one more time, get that water tube for the heater hose tightened down, and and then I'll spray these off again, these intake runners, put the gaskets on there and set the manifold on. And with that crossover pipe fastened down, I was able to maneuver this pipe out of there. And like I said, there's an O-ring on there, and I replaced it. Here's the old one that I took off. It's kind of flat, and it wasn't leaking, but you know, sure as you don't replace it, it'll start leaking. and that's not good. Okay, be sure and get your ignition wire hooked onto your solenoid and both of your knock sensors. Get them connected, and I believe that it might make a difference. I don't know. They might not even go on the wrong one, but I got them connected on the right one. Make sure you get your pipe bolt installed. And I was having a little bit of a mess trying to get this pipe to go in, and I was actually going in right here. And I realized I was missing the hole. It kept hollering, wrong hole, wrong hole. So I stuck my finger in there and I felt the moisture, and I said, oh, right there's the hole. And I missed it by that much. Anyway, we got the new gaskets on there. Don't forget to remove your intake port stuffings, whether you use a roll of tape or rags or whatever. You can see here that little loom. It's supposed to have a bolt to hold that in there, but that didn't. The starter don't even have a hole threaded there, and there wasn't a bolt in there, so that starter probably been replaced, or they didn't put it in from the factory. I don't know. We'll get this. I think I'm going to leave that bolt out so I can move this around, and we'll put that bolt in back here after we get the manifold set in place. So while you've got your intake ports vulnerable, just make sure you don't have nothing that's going to roll down in there. That could be a bad day. Getting that thing set down in there is a pain in the ass. I got all them tight. I recommend that you just kind of snug each side down and go over to the other side. Whichever side you start with, go over to the other side and snug it down, and then come back and kind of start in the middle and work your way out. And I don't know what the magazine, the Lexus magazine torque specs are, but good and tight, fellas. German torque specs, good and tight. And we'll get back here and get the fuel line attached, and then work on getting that loom on there. Don't forget to put your throttle body gasket in. And those two studs that I took out, went ahead and did the right thing and took a grinder to the end of them and made like a screwdriver notch, just a little bit. We don't have to torque them in. So when I put them in, I can kind of start them here and then just use a screwdriver and run them in, and then put the nuts on. And shouldn't be any problem there. But I got to go run errands, so I'm going to leave you lay here on the radiator for a while. I got these fuel line fasteners back on. Remember, you got the aluminum crush sleeve that goes at the bottom, and the one that's kind of staked so it holds on is up here on the top. That's on both sides. I used a 7/8 wrench, hand tighten it most of the way, and then I put my wrench in from this way. This obviously is not the right size wrench, but I came in through right here and worked it that way, and the other side as well. If you don't get them tight, you're going to have a leak. I know some people will jump up and down about me not replacing them crush washers, but you know, I've been doing this a long time and I've never replaced them, and I've never had a leak. The thing is, you don't want to use one that's damaged, and just because it's previously used don't mean it's damaged. Try and show me some specs that prove different. Anyway, we'll start getting the well, I got the seal in for the throttle body, and then I started the two studs on top, and you can see because I put that little slit in the end of it, real easy to run them studs in, and that made that a little nicer, not having to try to grip it between in the gap there. Anyway, let's start getting the harness put back on here, all the connectors. Pull this up out of the way and kind of shake it and let everything begin to fall into place, and then we'll if it don't go on, it probably don't go there. These, remember, we got to go on that side. We loosened that, so I need to tighten that back up, but these go down there. And when you push them on there, push them till you hear them click. We got 4 injectors, they're all green, and 4 coil packs, they're all black, and they all laid right where they were needed to go. And the accelerator cable is going to go over there. I went ahead and put the 2 bolts in for that. I don't have them tight, but so we'll go to the other side and start pulling it up. After we get these connectors in, then we'll fasten the 2 bolts here, one on either end, and the one back there in the middle. And remember, plug this one in and take this bolt out of this line, just so you can move that line forward a little bit, so you can get to that bolt right there, and tighten that bracket back up, and then put that bolt back in. Now, got them in there, got them tight. There's one in there. And if you're going to do it right, go ahead and put your loom holders back on, and the little clips that they went on. And I found here there's a port. We're going to take that, pull that little cap off. That'll let air out, because we got to fill it back up with coolant. That'll be a good place to purge the air out of it, so we get it full of coolant. And we got you see there the blue towel on top of the nut, or the bolt that holds the loom in. And then you can see the one back here in the back. You can see I put it in right back there. Took a pound of flesh off my hand to get it in there, but I got it in, got it tight. It's all snug in there. And then we got to take the connector that we disconnected off the top of that and plug it back in. Probably won't start without that. I don't know what that connector's for, but we'll plug it back in. It's only 2 wires. Anyway, when you tighten this bracket up, it's got a little pointer on it. It needs to be up against the manifold when it's tight, because this bolt right, or nut right here, threaded hole, is a nut welded to it. Your upper engine cover lays on top of it, and one of the bolts goes through that, so it needs to be lined up. Need to get a bolt put in there. Got one laying up here somewhere. Oh, that connector back there, that took off another ½ pound of flesh. I was trying to put it in where the connector was up like that, but it had to be turned 90 degrees. It wasn't like that. It went on like that. Well, my eyes can't see around corners and can't hardly feel, but I got it connected. The throttle cable goes in that holder there and that loom, and then we got to put this bracket on right here. Goes on those two nuts. We need to take them two nuts off, and we also fastened this bracket, that 12mm bolt there that held their heater hoses on, held them tight. And well, let's see. I got that bracket put on and got the throttle cable grommet pushed down in there. I just set it in place and kind of tapped it down with a hammer. Now we got to find the connector for the throttle position sensor. It's in there somewhere. It's in there somewhere. Here it is. No, that ain't it. Yeah, we'll find it. Yeah, keep looking, keep looking. There it is over here. Looks like you got a piece of plastic broke there. No loom for that. Oh well. Car's 20, almost 24 years old. Bound to have something broke. Well, let's see. Got a vacuum line going here. I think that's on the air cleaner. Had a couple vacuum lines here to hook back up. This one here, and this one here, and then we got this one here off of the brake booster. Got that back on. I think we're running out of stuff to put on. Need to put the PCV back in. That's what goes up there. That's what goes there. Ouch. That grommet for the PCB is a little bit hard. It's not very supple anymore. So we get the air filter housing fastened back down. I mean, I had to take it loose to find the seal ring for the fuel line back here. It fell down underneath there. 3 bolts, 1, 2, and 3 right there. And then we'll put the air hose on. And make sure before you put this on that this vacuum line running from, where's it come from? Down in there somewhere. It goes across, it goes under here, up to right here onto the back of the intake manifold. It goes underneath the air box. Then you got the vacuum line here. It's a vent tube off of the right side valve cover. And this vacuum line. Then you got a bolt here and a bolt there. And then tighten both clamps. Make sure your hose is not rolled under, that it's actually going around the pipe on the air filter housing. Anyway, we're going to call this done. All we got to do is tighten those 2 clamps, put the coolant in it, set the cover on it, and you got a bolt that goes here, or a nut, a bolt that goes there, a nut that goes there, and a bolt that goes there that holds that on. And we're going to call this one done. Thank you guys for watching. Share, like, and subscribe.